There is one topic in which I strongly disagree with Richard, and I will get to that in a moment.
Fit, formidable, and fantastic.
Recently, someone asked about Richard, aka Vegan Gains, in my Facebook group. So I figured I would do a video covering this trending topic. I like how blunt Richard is. I like how he gets that vegan message out there in an in-your-face and in an articulate and unapologetic manner. His channel is both entertaining and it has great production quality. And I am happy to have him on our side as a vegan. My only advice is to keep yourself safe, Richard. You are now a public figure who is putting out a very aggressive message, and it's pissing a lot of people off. And some who may not be very mentally stable and can even be possibly dangerous. For instance, someone apparently posted Richard's home address on a Mark Lawbliner video, but Mark deleted it. There is always a possibility of legal action, too. And we could even draw parallels to YouTuber Jason Blaha versus Lane Norton. Richard seems like a smart guy, so I'm sure he calculated the risks and the benefits of what he is doing, and I'm sure that he is exercising proper precautions in his life. I like your work, so keep up the good fight. Now, where I disagree with Richard. I'm going to explain each disagreement that I have in detail, but with one warning. This is going to get very technical, and I'm going to get all scientific up in this shit.
But now on to macros. I generally recommend eating an 80-10-10 macronutrient ratio, which means 80% of your calories coming from carbohydrates, 10% coming from protein, and 10% coming from fat.
I strongly disagree with this. First, percentages without a specific caloric value are quite arbitrary, actually. I actually prefer myself to go with grams per pound or kilogram as an athlete, which is a fixed amount. For instance, 10% of protein at 2,500 calories would be about 62.5 grams, but at 3,000 calories, it's 75 grams. Do you see what I mean by arbitrary? It really depends on the overall calories. So if you're going to use percentages, you should say something like X percentage of calories from Y macro at X amount of calories. What if your body weight, sport, or amount of exercise requires 150 grams of protein? Let's get theoretical here. Using 80-10-10, you'd require 6,000 calories to hit that 150 gram protein mark. That's a fuck ton of calories. And let's say you only weigh 165 pounds. That might be an extreme caloric surplus of just over 3,500 calories above your maintenance level. Depending on your metabolism, of course, and thus you'd risk gaining fat to hit your protein goals while utilizing 80-10-10.
And like I said before, I generally recommend keeping your fat intake low, no more than 10% of daily calories.
I recommend a slightly higher minimum. Based on research on both genders, I'd never suggest someone drop below 20% fat from their maintenance calories unless they desire a significant drop in sex hormone values like testosterone levels. And I've covered this in great detail in a previous video linked in the description. And 20% isn't all that high. For a 170-pound male who maintains at about 2,550 calories per day, that's only about 57 grams of dietary fat, which is only about 28 grams higher than Richard's 10% suggestion at the same caloric intake, and about 113 grams lower than what would be considered a high-fat or a ketogenic level diet. Just to put things into perspective there for you.
As fat is almost directly stored into adipose tissue, and having too much fat can cause unwanted weight gain.
Now this is an overgeneralization. Fat is calorically dense, standing at 9 calories per gram. So if you surplus on calories from fat, yeah, you're going to gain weight. But fat itself will not inherently make you fat. In a study on vegan ketogenic diets with a higher fat intake set to around 43% of total calories, not only was fat loss still experienced, yes, fat loss, despite that higher fat intake, but also reductions in LDL cholesterol and blood pressure. That study even inspired Dr. Greger to release a video that was very unlike him about the benefits of a vegan ketogenic diet. I emphasize vegan ketogenic diet versus the animal-based ketogenic diets. Now, I'm not suggesting you go ketogenic, though it can improve the quality of life, and there's a body of research to support this of people with epilepsy. I'm just pointing out some very interesting points with regards to fat intake, specifically as a vegan. I will get into protein specifics in a moment.
Being asked to make a cookie cutter program for just everyone to follow, and I don't want to do that because it doesn't teach you how to eat, it only tells you what to eat, and everyone has different lifestyles and eating habits and access to certain foods.
I agree with all of this. That meal plans are incredibly personal, plus your dietary intake is lifestyle and body dependent. Diets are not one size fits all. What do I mean by lifestyle and body dependent? Well, are you relatively inactive? Are you an athlete? What kind of athlete? How much do you weigh? How often and how intensely do you train? For athletes, these are factors that you need to consider when mapping out your dietary intake. In athletics, there is a body of research that's to show suggested ranges for optimal performance and results. Why do you think that top athletes go through weekly meal preps and utilize diet coaches? And here is where Richard and I differ on protein. Research on endurance athletes suggests 1 to 1.6 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight per day, which is approximately 0.46 grams to 0.73 grams of protein per pound. A 2014 published peer-reviewed paper in JISSN suggested that natural bodybuilders intake a range of 2.3 to 3.1 grams of protein per kilogram of lean body mass per day, which is approximately 0.91 to 1.36 grams of protein per pound. And it appears vegan bodybuilders specifically may want to at least consider the lower end of that suggested protein intake range. So if you blindly eat, you may not meet your needs in a specific sport, or you may consume too many calories or too few, which can negatively impact your performance and your physique, especially for people who gain or lose weight very easily when they fall on one of the extremes of the spectrum. I'm the former. I gain fat and muscle both quite easily. Whereas it is much easier for the average person to get their needed protein intake. The current recommended dietary allowance for protein ranges from 13 grams to 56 grams per day, depending on your age range. Bear in mind, the RDA is for average people, not athletes. Don't confuse that. The general population should be able to easily obtain those figures, consuming Richard's suggestion of a whole plant foods-based diet with ample calories.
The most calorically dense and cheapest foods you can eat are starches, which...
I also do not agree with suggesting starches universally without bearing in mind specific genetic exceptions. In a global piece of research published in 2014 that spanned participants from east to west, half of the study participants lacked an appropriate number of a specific gene required to properly pre-digest starches, which raised their obesity risk by 8 times. And this demonstrates that the starch solution, for instance, by Dr. John McDougall, is not an appropriate dietary method for everyone. There is no one-size-fits-all with diet, and that's really about it. He feels it works for him. Those are my disagreements and why. In the end, do whatever you want. It is your body, it is your goals, and since we're all eating ethically, no harm to anything else. If you would like to hear and see more about my results as a vegan, check out my previous video and current channel trailer, which is titled Full Natty Vegan Gains. I've linked it in the description below. I'd also like to give a shout out at this point to Vegan Cheetah, and I'd like to thank him as well. His recent video he just did called Ethical Gains, which he had borrowed from me, he gave me a shout out in that video and asked people to subscribe to my channel. So thank you for that. I really appreciate that. I don't expect anyone to give me shout outs or to help me in any kind of way, but I appreciate anything that I get in life or anything anyone does for me. So I wanted to thank you for that, genuinely. Again, I love your channel, Richard. I love your work. I respect what you're doing. We just have some disagreements, obviously, in dietary intake, but whatever. We're all vegan in the end. I just thought these were things that were worth pointing out, especially for athletic viewers out there or bodybuilders who might be looking to convert to the vegan diet. Anyway, I will see you guys for another episode. Until then, stay fit, stay formidable, and stay fantastic. See you around.